Dave Stewart, this hangout has been a long time coming, in my opinion. Um, thanks for agreeing to do this. I can't wait to dig in and hear all the stuff. Tell me about this. Tell me who you are. Well, I know who
Yeah.
you are, but tell the world who you are and
Yeah.
this amazing podcast that you've given birth to.
Man, I always tell the story when I think of this. It's I've had years of failure. I always love to think about that, right? Because I've had all these things that didn't work.
Yeah.
Blogging, all this stuff, nothing, like nothing resonating. And then in 2015, I set a goal. I was listening to business podcasts, Pat Flynn,
Yeah.
John Lee Dumas,
Yeah.
all the people, and I was loving podcasting. I was just listening to it all the time, and I still do. And I was addicted to podcasts. And I said, 2 years, I'm going to start a podcast. I have no idea what it's going to be in. I'm just going to start one. And 2 years later, December 2017, I already had the blog going, the Wet Fly Swing blog. I started a fly fishing podcast.
Amazing.
Like,
a
boom.
fly fishing podcast.
Fly fishing, not
Beautiful.
fishing, not, and actually it wasn't even fly fishing.
Not even like
it was steelhead fly fishing.
It was which?
Steelhead was a specific species of fly fishing.
Yeah.
It was fishing. It was steelhead fly fishing.
Yeah.
And I started there because I knew it. It was that's what we kind of did here. I knew it a little bit. I knew some people. So the first 10 people I interviewed were these all big people, but I just had some connections. And it was the first time anybody ever reached out to me online and said, wow, keep doing it.
Amazing.
And right away, that was like that first month, I was like, oh my God.
You found your thing.
Yep. That was it. And that was 2017. I haven't missed a week of podcast publishing holidays since 2017.
Amazing.
450 episodes now, interviews.
That's outstanding.
So that's it.
And you decided, at what point did you decide that you were going to try to monetize this thing? Or did you know from the beginning, like this was going to be?
I knew from when I first saw Pat Flynn was my first, I knew nothing about online marketing. And that was my first mentor, right? And so I just started, but I struggled for, like I said, 2 years of struggling with blogging, all this stuff. And then finally, it was that podcast that just launched it. And, but I always knew I was trying to make money. I mean, in fact, when my second daughter was born, that's when it hit me. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to make some money, more money than I'm making. So that's when I said, you know what, let's check out this online marketing thing.
Expensive hobbies are hard to justify when kids are happening.
Yeah. So that's it, man. It was, from day one, I thought about monetizing, but then I got into it. Once I started the podcast, I knew I wasn't monetizing right away. I said, you know what, this is great. I'm loving this. Let's just do this for a while. So I did it for about a year, and then I started bringing on some sponsors. Knew nothing about sponsorship, right?
Yeah.
I was getting $50 here or there, whatever it was, like nothing.
Yeah.
And then whenever I ran into your program, was when and I remember too, because I consumed your content, all your free stuff on YouTube, for a year, at least a year of all your stuff. I knew I turned your whole, I didn't even tell you, but I think you know about this, but I turned your whole YouTube channel into my own private podcast.
Brilliant.
Download them into audio files. I still probably have it on my phone here.
So you've heard all the terrible dad jokes that I have to offer.
Multiple times. I've listened to all your stuff multiple times. And then when I was talking to your sales call, and it came up, I remember I was like,
you were talking to Frank.
Yeah, Frank. Yeah. And I was just like, and I was just kind of like, And then finally I was on a walk at the park with the kids, and it was I think he called and he said, well, are you going to do it? And I said, what the heck? Invest in yourself, right? Invest in yourself. And I did it, and it was for sure the best move I've ever made in my business.
Amazing.
So in 3 months, your program, how you do it in 3 or 4 months or whatever, however you do it, it's just like, you know what I mean? It's just step. And then you're going and you're selling and you're on sales calls. And then I loved it. Like, I love the whole, like the sales stuff, like that whole process. I would never thought I would enjoy that, but it's all, I kind of like it all. It's hard, but it's fun.
Interesting. So you didn't see yourself. I see you as a natural salesperson. You don't feel that way of yourself.
Not at first. I didn't.
Interesting.
No.
And so you came to the sponsorship accelerator, 90 days, intensive, learn everything there is to know about sponsorship. And you closed some deals.
Yeah.
Like a lot of deals.
I closed some deals. This is my 2 weeks.
No more $50 sponsorships either.
No, it was big. I consumed all of your content within, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks. I was done. I went through it all. So I was already in the first month, I was selling.
Yeah.
And I mean, I knew, like, going to those meetings, I just kind of followed your thing step by step. And what I also had is somebody who taught me how to get leads on LinkedIn, a different way than you teach. I think your way is better, but I was doing some cold email through LinkedIn. So I already had some leads coming.
Yep.
And it was like, okay, here we go.
Amazing. So you started
Yeah.
using the templates, the process, the audience data, and you started selling sponsorship deals.
Yep. 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 The
So
audience data.
so what kind of sponsorship were you doing? You were doing really small sponsorship when we met, or no sponsorship to speak of, or just kind
I
of
was
one-offs here and
doing,
there?
like the CPM thing is right, like $25 per thousand
Yep.
listens or whatever, right? Sometimes higher. But yeah, I mean, I was charging $150 for I don't know what it
Right.
was. I mean, it was way low. I
Yeah.
can't even remember at this point, but it was below $2,000 for whatever the year.
Yeah.
So I went from that. So
There
very
are like
low, hundreds
five
of dollars.
podcasts that can make money off of the CPM download model.
Yeah.
Everyone
Yeah.
else has got to do cool experiential. Like we got to get
Exactly.
way more creative if you want to
And
make
that's the
money
thing I didn't know
podcasting.
about. So I didn't know about that. I mean, that's where that was a big lesson, is that, okay, a lot of people think like, okay, podcast ads, right? But that's
Yeah.
not what it is. It's like, okay, that's one piece,
Mhm.
but the bigger piece is like these leads I'm bringing in. I mean, that was an activation that I probably wouldn't have come up with that, you know what I mean? Like just working through the activation muscle.
Yeah.
And so now it's actually, I mean, some of these brands are coming back just for the leads. Like you know what I mean? They're still getting podcast, but they love, I mean, we just gave out 11,000 leads, right? In one event. We got
Yeah.
this thing going.
So you have a podcast, you have some events, you're doing some lead gen, you're basically doing a full experiential marketing offering now
Yep. Live
as
events.
part of your sponsorship. How are the events tied to the theme of your podcast?
Yes. Yeah. So the events are, so it's a travel program. So
Yeah.
basically we go out and launch this. We bring on a bunch of partners. Again, another learning lesson I learned, like bring on partners, because partners are going to help you share. So we
Yep.
get a dozen partners on board and we say, hey, let's do this. Let's share it out to our email list. Let's share it on
Yep.
social, do this cool thing, do some Facebook ads. And then we do the trip. So later I host, and then I go to these places around the country, and then I
Yeah.
drop in and we bring in 6 people that pay. We
Yep.
pay this, you know what I mean? So, and then this
A
visit
tough
group
life, Dave.
stuff. I know.
What?
I know.
This is
It's
you're
pretty
living the
cool.
dream.
It's
How do
it's
I
my ultimate. It's my
yeah.
ultimate. Actually, this idea. This again talks about planting the seed. Who was it? It wasn't one of your mentors, but it was somebody that I think knows one of your business mentors, and he helped me try to come up with this idea like 3 years ago.
Mm.
And he saw it, but I didn't see it until we got into the activation. But anyways, the difference is we're going hundreds of dollars. I just got a $15,000 sponsorship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
15,000.
Like $15,000.
Yeah.
And I can just see
From
how,
$150 an episode. To me, this is
yeah,
so incredible because I talk to people all the time. They're just like, I just need like a couple $100. Yeah, I get it. You just need a couple $1,000 and you're happy. But what if you could actually do this for a living and be comfortable and make a lot of money and actually like enjoy what you're doing? Like they hit this upper limit, this cap where they won't imagine what it would be like if it actually worked. And so you're
yeah,
talking about $150, a couple $100 for a sponsorship to $15,000,
yeah,
and for a fly fishing podcast.
yeah, yeah.
Nothing wrong with a fly fishing podcast, but we're not talking about the Joe Rogan podcast
No,
with 100 gazillion downloads.
exactly.
Like Joe Rogan could interview anybody and he'll get a gazillion
Yeah,
gazillion downloads. You're hustling
yeah,
and you're doing something that you love, and you're engaging people who are passionate about this sport that
yeah,
some people don't even really even know what it is. And you're
yeah,
doing decent 5-figure individual sponsorships.
yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah. Yeah, it is. It's, and again, I'm at that point where it's just, I guess I know it's been hard work, so I don't have to pinch myself because I know
Yeah.
I put in a lot of hard work into it.
Yeah.
It's been a long time coming to get to this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know that that's legit, but
Yeah.
I do feel like, wow, this is something that I built. So
Yeah.
again, those lessons learned, right? You're always trying to tweak in business. You don't stay stagnant too long.
Yeah.
So I'm always thinking like, okay, what's next? What's coming? How do we get up to that? How do we get up to that next level? But you came in the perfect time when we reconnected. It was like,
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't have been scripted any better. Like
Yeah.
literally that program ended or somewhere in that range. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wow, Chris is still going. Now we got this $1 million property. Now
Yeah.
this is the next level.
Yeah. And the coaching team and I were talking like, who we really wish was in this program with us?
Yeah.
Dave Stewart.
I know.
Let's look him up. And so we
It's
tracked you down.
definitely, I mean, I feel if I felt at home anywhere, you know what I mean? Like on anything, this is your place. is that home.
I
You know,
appreciate that.
it's that group. It is that cool place. You built this thing, like Chris, you know, like everybody in there, and you know, and a couple people reached out to me and stuff, and I've tried to help, and I try to do my best in the group. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To just to provide, you know, give back. Really, I feel like at
Yeah.
that point, I'm at this point where I feel almost like you've given so much with the program.
Mm.
Like I just feel like money is, if people knew, you know what I mean, like what it's worth. Like your guy Frank even told me, he's like, hey, can we get the money back that you spent? He's like, you're gonna get this back.
Yeah.
You know, you're gonna get this back really quick. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
You're setting your sights too low. Get your money back. No problem.
yeah. So
That's
we
not
blew
a
that out of
concern.
the water.
Yeah.
We blew that out of the
We
water.
got that and more. That was like week 4, probably.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. I love that.
So
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as you said, you put in tons of work, and you've got a great brand. We had some good systems that you could tap into and use. It's interesting though, because you said that you had been using all of the free content that's out there from the Sponsorship Collective, but something was different in the Sponsorship Accelerator. So what was, because like I feel like I'm consistent in my free stuff and in my not free stuff.
Yeah.
But clearly there's some magic in the Sponsorship Accelerator that set off the powder keg.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the you know, the step-by-step I love. You know, the fact that here's the program, boom, 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 and you're stepping through, that's huge. So it's that thing, like all this content. Yeah, I mean, it is all out there, and I consumed it all too. That's the amazing thing, right? I like took it all in multiple times. I knew about your program, and then, but once I got in, you know, having the group, the bottom line is that the group thing is huge because you're going to come across roadblocks.
Yep.
And if you can get through those roadblocks quickly, it gets you to that next level. So the group is huge. And then I guess that's the bulk, right? I mean, the community, the help with the coaching and the step-by-step is what helped me. I mean, if without that, I would have got there. It probably would have taken me 5 or 10 years. You know what I mean? I probably would have got there eventually. I don't think I would have got at the level I'm at now. But
it's but people are like, oh, is this, so it's like a shortcut? I'm like, I don't know if I'd call it a shortcut. We can see around corners. So it's like you're about to have this challenging experience, or a sponsor's going to ask for a thing that you might not have. So let's just plan for it now. And then when it happens, you're better prepared. And so it keeps people moving faster. I love it. So I got to ask, what's your very biggest win since we started working together?
That's so tough. I mean, the money is it's there because I would never thought, you know, one sponsor, and now I'm even thinking bigger, because I don't really have the Coca-Colas or the companies with lots of money, right? I'm not even at that. I'm just still lower. I found that the sweet spot in my niche is not going for the biggest brands in my niche, because you know, they've got stuff, but going more to the medium to smaller tier, because they really need, like, if I can send a travel company 6 new paid customers that are going to spend 4,000, right? You start to get to that point. So now if I'm just asking them for 10 or 20,000, it's like, oh, easy. Sure. We'll do that. Right. So, God, but what is my big, I mean, I guess I just go back to the 50,000. I mean, just the fact that I broke 6 figures. I mean, 6 figures in this thing in revenue, you know,
6 figures in sponsorship is people aren't just giving money away. That's hard to get.
I know. Yeah. So it's hard to get,
impressive.
and it's hard to get them. It's hard to get them back too, right? I mean, to get these people to come back, but I think again, that's what I'm learning. I feel like my biggest win is really having this, to know that it's still here. Like you, this, you know, Sponsorship Collective, it feels good because I know that it feels like something I'm always going to be a part of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that was probably my biggest win when you guys came back to me and we were like, okay, here's the potential.
Yeah.
I was just like, man, this is like, I'm feeling good, because I did struggle a little bit, because I'm still, the scaling thing is still a little bit of my struggle, because I've got staff. I think just having this community is the big win for me, to know you guys are still here.
Yeah. I love that. Fascinating. You know, it's really interesting, Dave. You hit on something. You're like, oh, I don't have the big sponsors. I found my sweet spot is in the small to medium companies, presumably because you can make a bigger impact and they recognize the impact. And so we hear from so many people, they're like, oh, you know what, I just need that one big sponsor. Like, I'm just going to go get whatever the category is, whether it's automotive or consumer goods or whatever. I get that one big sponsor and then all will be well. And here you are, unquestionably highly successful. And you're like, actually, it's not the big sponsors. It's the small, medium.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
As you said, you're doing 6 figures in sponsorship.
Yeah.
You have a team.
Yeah.
That's, you don't need a 7-figure sponsor to make a massive difference. What you need is a good system, know who your audience is, and be able to deliver on the things you promise your sponsors. You do that, and the sky's the limit.
Yep, exactly.
I'm curious, what are your thoughts? Somebody's where you were when you were thinking of coming on board, consume the free content, knew you had an idea. Looking back now, you realize you had an outstanding idea, but at the time you didn't.
No.
You're like, I'm going to take a chance on this. I'm going to try to grow this thing. So what's the advice to someone who's thinking of joining us in the sponsorship accelerator? They're not sure. They're nervous.
Right.
They got kids. They got bills to pay. Right.
Man.
What
my advice is the same advice I think of now, and I think about every year. And I'm not sure who gave me that quote, but you have to invest in yourself. Like I said earlier, like that for sure. Investing in this program has launched me, right? I would still be just struggling, right? I'd still be just kind of like, and now I'm at a point where like, this is a legit business. And so I think, you just have to invest in yourself and know that this 100% works. You know what I mean? Like again, you don't have to, you know what I mean? Like I am your biggest fan. I've always kind of jokingly said that, but I think that like, I love running into people and just being like, hey, just like Frank told me before, he's like, yeah, whatever money you need back, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so, it was like in that period of time, what I accomplished was something I would never thought I could accomplish. I mean, I would never have thought I could have got these sponsors like 7,000, 10,000. And now I'm like, okay, well, 15,000, 20, what's next? How far can I go? Right.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, you got to do it. If you don't invest in yourself, you will always be at some lower level and you will always struggle. Right. I mean, I think that's probably one of my biggest business lessons that I've learned is that you need to spend a certain amount of money every year to keep growing and
100%.
Develop. Right. That's what I would say. So do it. Just do it. Right. Just go for it.
You're going to invest in yourself in one of the only 2 resources we have, money or time.
Right.
And the problem is, this is a quote by the Buddha. The problem is you think you have time. And you don't.
You don't.
Time is the scarcest resource and it's not renewable. Money is infinite. We literally just print money.
Right.
But time, once it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah.
And so you can spend the time to learn a process, but you're going to have opportunity cost. Or you can spend the money and get there quicker. But there's always a pound of flesh.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a sad thing when we speak to people and they're like, I'm going to do this on my own. Then they book a call with us a year later.
Yeah.
And their application to speak to us reads exactly like the application from a year before. They have the exact same problems, the exact same revenue. And I look at that and think, and then they come on board and they join the program and we help them.
Yeah.
And I look at that and think, that's an entire year of struggle that just didn't have to be.
And I'm finding myself helping. I mean, there's think of all the podcasts out there that still are like me, where they think of it as an ad, and this is the stuff I use in my sales calls when I'm talking to people in the discovery calls, right? Is just explain to them like, hey, we might not find an agreement here. I'm okay with that. But at least at the end of the day, you're going to know what successful podcast sponsorship looks like, because I'm going to show you what's working for us. You know what I mean? Just being like, just letting them know. And it's transparent. I'm just being honest with them. But it's totally true too, right? I mean, so many people out there in the podcasting space have no idea. So just like me, I didn't know like this. It's not podcasting, or it's not ads, right? It's sponsorship.
Yes.
That's what you teach. You teach sponsorship, which is a huge, huge thing.
It is a full spectrum, it's a full spectrum marketing discipline. And we say things like, here's something from our sponsors. But what we really mean is, here's an introduction to a commercial. Yeah. And I listen to podcasts, and there's a 15-second fast forward button on podcasts for a reason. Yeah. It's the exact length of a mid-roll ad. So here's a word from our sponsor. I just hit it twice and I'm back into content.
It's gone.
And it's like,
it's gone.
Yeah. But when the podcaster's doing amazing things like, hey, go check out this webpage where we put together the industry's best show notes that you can download, and you're doing lead gen for a podcast sponsor, and then meetups and events and adding all of this stuff. People are probably listening and thinking, well, that's a lot of work. I just want to run a podcast. Yes, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's also incredibly valuable and can generate a lot of money. And done well, it's actually a lot. It's a lot of fun.
It is. Yeah, no, it's fun. I think that's the take-home message that actually, well, I've always found just everything around podcasting I've enjoyed, like the editing. I've transferred some of that off now to staff, and I'm transferring more. But the sponsorship stuff, I kind of love all that too, right? It definitely is hard work, but it's fun when you find something that works, because now you're delivering, and it's easier to get people back when they see like, okay, here's what we have. In fact, I had a sponsor that I didn't share, the fulfillment report. They didn't really, I wasn't clear exactly how much value they were getting throughout the year we worked together. And they were pretty much going to be out. I think he might even said, I think they said, yeah, we're not coming back. Got him on the fulfillment report, showed him the report, and he actually saw, whoa, actually we're getting this many downloads per episode, more than like he was expecting this many, and we were delivering twice as many.
Yeah.
And right away he's like, all right, we're back.
Fascinating.
You know what I mean? I didn't have to say anything. It was like, it was just boom, that's the fulfillment report.
And so the typical, first of all, well done, right? Like you're providing proof that you delivered value in saving a sponsor.
Yeah.
And second of all, most people in sponsorship are like, oh, when I need money again, I'll just send them another package, another crappy gold, silver, bronze package nobody wants to see.
No.
The problem is that the sponsor decided they were out 6 months ago, and then you didn't talk to them for 6 months. You didn't even know. Instead, you intervene at the most meaningful point and say, here's a fulfillment report. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah.
And then save the sponsor.
Yeah.
It is way easier to just keep a sponsor than to go out and find another one.
Yeah.
Right. It's hard to close a new sponsor, but to keep a sponsor, especially when we've already put in all the hard work, just this one simple intervention.
Yeah.
And
we're going to do more of that. We're doing more. I think I found that some of our bigger sponsors, they like we're doing monthly reports for some of them, but I think that's a little too much on the podcast, but at least quarterly reports. I think I'm going to go into quarterly reports for everybody, because we usually work together for about a year. And I think delivering that, so essentially it's a fulfillment report every quarter. Here's what you're getting. Now they're seeing the value. Boom, every 3 months they get it. And at the end, they're already clear. So it's not going to happen like this last one where the guy had no idea, even though I was talking to him, he didn't know quite the value. So I feel like those reports quarterly are going to be,
that's brilliant. And so you touched on something else. Many podcasters are out selling like single podcast episodes, or maybe like 2 or 3 podcast episodes.
Right.
You're doing a year at a time.
I started 6 months. I found that to give them more value.
Yeah.
I always use them when I'm doing these discovery calls. I'm like, hey, 7 to 10 touch points online, right? You got to get people the brand awareness. They're not going to buy until they get, so that's my pitch. If we're talking, it's like, hey, we need to get them hearing about you. So we're going to do the brand awareness piece on the podcast. We're going to be talking about you. They're going to be learning about you. I'm going to be reading copy. All that's going to be great, but that's not it. And I let them know like, hey, that's just the start. The next point is like, how are we going to create some custom activation that's really going to take them and engage them to the next level? So this is all talk that obviously this is your talk, but I've turned it into our, and those discovery calls, occasionally you'll get ghosted, right? Stuff happens. Sometimes people don't, but man, for the most part, people are just like, they're fired up.
Yeah.
They're just like, they're loving where we're going. So I feel like the discovery process is another big thing. Even just calling it discovery versus whatever else you could call it is such a perfect word.
Yeah. Yeah. I think lots of people are afraid of the sales process. I'm not saying that you were in this boat, but lots of people are afraid of it, or at the very least, they just don't like it because they're going in and trying to pitch people. Here's a package. Let me tell you why this bronze level package that you don't want is something you do want. Versus, hey, let's talk about our shared audience. Let's talk about our shared philosophies. Let's talk about ways that you generate new leads and whether or not I can help you do that. Right. And if I can help you, I'll make an offer. And if I can't help you, no sweat. We'll just part ways as friends. Like, let's just have a conversation and you tell me everything you want. And if I think I can help you, I'll put something in front of you. It's actually fun.
It
You
is
don't
fun.
feel like a dirtbag trying to sell people
No.
stuff they don't want. It's just like,
Yeah.
let me teach you how podcast sponsorship works. Like you're the
And
authority, not them. And
exactly. Yeah, it's fun, and that's the authority. Yeah, so they see you as, right. That's, you have the experiences, the discovery processes. That's why that I do like a 3 or 4 call discovery process, right?
yeah,
So one, the second call is getting them into the the business case. The next call is really, the third is like the proposal, but that's not the end of it. That's always the thing. It's like, hey, this is not, I'm not selling you here. Like,
yeah,
let's see what you think. But let's tweak it if we have to.
yeah,
Sometimes they're like, oh yeah, that's what we want. But sometimes they're like, no, let's do something else. And then again, bam fam, right? And then you're back
yeah,
on call number 4, and that's even better. I mean,
yeah,
if you could do 20 calls, it would probably be even better, right? I mean,
yeah.
but at some point, but I feel like the 3 call, that's the 3 to 4 call is my discovery process.
I love that. And so what was it like? How did you sell before when you were selling sponsorship?
God, this is pretty pathetic. This is how bad. I mean, because I really wanted to do this podcast. I really wanted to monetize this podcast. You know what I mean? And like, I got to a point where I was. This is so terrible now I think about it. I would bring people on the podcast, right? Like companies that I wanted,
Yeah.
and then at the end, I'd be like, so, what do we got here? Like, what do you know about podcast sponsorship, or however I said it? It was just,
Would you do it
it
on the
was
show?
pathetic. No. I do it after,
Okay.
like, no. After we wrapped it up, and I'd say, build a relationship, right? And
Yeah.
so, oh, what a
So you
nightmare. I
basically try
mean,
to hard sell them after
yeah, it
podcast.
was terrible, and so that was so bad
Did it
because
work?
now I would get this podcast. I think it might have worked a couple times, but
Yeah.
the nightmare is that it's just not the way, right? I mean,
You
so
don't feel
that,
good.
yeah, so I was doing that a little bit, and then and sometimes people just even today come on and say, hey, brand awareness, they don't even know about all this other
Yeah.
stuff. So,
The
right,
sponsor.
so yeah, the sponsor
Like,
the sponsor
yeah.
doesn't know. They think like, hey, let's just brand awareness, great, even though they're not even talking about sales. I really try to get to that point, like how many sales, what do we want to get out of this?
Yeah.
Talk numbers, like, and
Yeah.
that's something you taught me, like, hey, I want to get down to numbers
Yeah.
so we can really talk ROI.
Yeah. Yeah. My very favorite one, like, oh, I want brand awareness. Amazing. How many brand awareness units would you like to have? And they're like,
Right.
this makes no sense. Like, right. So
Yeah.
let's instead talk about things we can measure, and then we'll know if it was successful or not.
Yeah.
And like, if someone becomes aware of your brand, what's the next step they take? Let's measure
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So if someone is just aware of your brand, is that sufficient? Do you hit your sales goals for the quarter?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes brands don't know. And the challenge is, as a sponsorship seeker, you're like, yeah, I can put logos on stuff. You do a deal,
Yeah.
you get some money, the sponsor gets
Yeah.
no value and they're gone.
Exactly. And that's the whole, and I actually tell sponsors, prospects on the call, like a lot of times I'll say, hey, it's actually pretty easy to take somebody's money the first time.
Yeah.
Like make a sale, like the first time, easy. Making the second person to have them come back and make a sale,
Yeah.
that's the hard part, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
What else do you want to say about the magic of sponsorship and how it's changed your business?
Man, I think it's a mindset, however you want to word it, a mindset shift. I mean, the plate where I'm at now, thinking of the business versus where I was thinking about it,
Yeah.
it was always a struggle, but now I actually see, you can kind of see the steps to wherever
Yeah.
that is, wherever you want to get.
Interesting.
And even though we still have a tiny, our podcast downloads, we're doing good, right? We're approaching 3 million all-time downloads, right? But like you said, Joe Rogan is at a 300 billion or whatever he has, right?
Yeah.
We're never going to be there. So I still struggle a little bit with that, right? Like we're not, but we have enough,
Yeah.
and I'm always trying to figure out ways to grow the show, but we have enough to do what we're doing. So, it's like that scaling piece.
Yeah.
Scaling to the next level. That's really what gets me like, all right, that's my next big thing here. I need to really scale. I mean, doubling the revenue 3 years in a row after your program is, I think, pretty good, right?
Doubling your revenue every year is pretty darn good.
Yeah, it's pretty darn good.
Yeah, it's pretty darn good.
So that's all I'd say. I mean, I think just right there, you could just say that. I mean, doubling the revenue, and now if I double the revenue again, if I double the revenue, let's see, 3 more times, I'm going to be at $1 million.
Yeah, you'll be doing okay.
So,
Yeah, this is why often. I doubt Frank did. Frank is a good man. He would never laugh at someone who's asking such a question. But when we hear the question like, will I make my money back?
Yeah.
Like that, I understand why people ask that question, but it's the goal is sad to me.
Yeah.
Like, let's set our sights on on the dream. And then if we miss that, okay, we're still pretty happy. But yeah, this risk-based decision making, I think, is the thing that's holding people back. Because they don't realize what can be done. It's a $70 billion a year industry. There's a lot of sponsorship out there. So when people are like, I just want a couple $1,000, it's like, yeah, but that doesn't excite anybody.
No.
Sponsors don't want cheap stuff. They want good stuff.
Right. Yeah. And even in a down market, right, there's still going to be sponsors, brands spending on sponsorship. Absolutely. And that, right. And so I feel good. I feel good about where we are. And I think, like I said, I think for me, the community thing, having a connection, doing this, like this is kind of definitely like full circle, man. This is kind of cool to be able to put this together because it's been it's been a long time. But yeah, the community, I think I'll leave it there, man. I think there's nothing better than building a community, and what you've done with your, I know you've had plenty of your story. I don't know if I've ever heard you tell the story, your full story, but I would love to hear that someday.
One day.
Yeah.
One day you can interview me on your podcast. I don't know anything about fly fishing, but I've got dad jokes for days.
There you go. Awesome.
Dave Stewart, where can people come and hear the best podcast on fly fishing? Where can they find you? Wetflyswing.com. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's it.
Dave, it's been an absolute pleasure to be on this journey with you, and I really appreciate you hanging out with me today.
Yeah, appreciate you, Chris. Talk to you soon.